going inside the Bitcoin machine. All I want is a crib, I ain't never had this shit in my life. I got kids, so I gotta make something out of nothing. Need a kingdom island, no Jeffrey Epstein, just a big crib with my kids and my kids. I'm just trying to get rich. If this don't work out, Chainlink got my back. Know a couple motherfuckers that can hack.
Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. This is the inaugural episode of Behind the Cube. This is a channel dedicated to Chainlink research, looking into all the connections, integrations, the occult side of things, looking into every aspect of Link from the team members to the history of it, companies involved, etc. My name is Rich. I'm here to be your tour guide for Chainlink. I'm a frog poster and a Link Marine for 3 years strong. I've been in blockchain technology for about 5 years now. Got into Bitcoin around 2015. And I'm here on a mission. Me and this channel are here on a mission. We're here to catch you, the public, up on years of Chainlink lore and drama and backgrounds, technological explanations, memes, and culture as a whole. Chainlink culture, because it really has emerged a new culture in the internet from this sect of cryptocurrency enthusiasts. Very interesting stuff. So the mission of this channel is not to give you expectations. It is not to tell you, oh, I think Chainlink will do XYZ in the next month. I think the price will be X dollars by the end of the year. No, that's not what this is about. This is about helping everyone else catch up and helping people see the true potential of Link beyond the dollar value, beyond the currency aspect of it. See what it can really do for the world, for the individual, for a business, for a government. So what is Chainlink? Some of you are probably watching this video and you hear me all passionate about something like this. You're like, okay, what the fuck is he even talking about? If you're familiar with blockchains are like databases. They're somewhere where information is stored, it's verified to be true, and it's checked against by other people in this network verifying integrity of data. So they're like computers, kind of. Imagine a blockchain like a computer without the internet. Very nice, it can store files, it can run programs, but it can't really do much. You know what I mean? And that starts with Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is a digital currency. If you're watching this, you already know what Bitcoin is. Or go Google another channel's explanation of it. This is a Chainlink channel, not a Bitcoin channel. Bitcoin led to more complex versions of the blockchain, like Ethereum. Ethereum allows for full code execution on the blockchain, similar to a computer, but it still did not have a native networking feature. It still did not have a way to communicate to other blockchains or to meaningful external data sources by itself. It needed help. It needed Sergey's help. That's where Chainlink comes in. Chainlink is the internet of blockchains. Not only does it let a blockchain talk to other blockchains, which right now it lets 74 blockchains talk to 74 other blockchains. But not a bad start for the first year that they started real interchain communications. But not only that, it allows for these blockchains to connect to legacy databases too. So that means Google's terabytes, exabytes of data. That means the government's data, private medical records, all of these pieces of data that before had no really secure way of being communicated or a secure, reliable way to be automated with. This is where Chainlink comes in and bridges that gap. Chainlink will allow programs to talk to each other from the blockchain and programs to talk to the real world from the blockchain, unlocking trillions of dollars of value. So there's a few things going on right now. This was once, way back when, this was a matter of, oh, one day Chainlink will do this, one day these people will be involved, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that anymore. Nowadays, the people are already in. The businesses have already bought, and they are already integrating. We've got Google, Oracle, we've got Microsoft.
And then likewise, we're also working with Microsoft on their Bletchley offering, specifically in this piece of their Bletchley offering, something called Cryptlets, where it's kind of supposed to offer this feature.
We've got Swift Bank, Fidelity, Santander. We've got China and China's BSN network. We've got the US federal government and Cornell University, which is pretty much our equivalent of it. We have banks, governments, businesses, and non-governmental political entities like the UN. We have entities all over the world jumping in right now, building very critical pieces of software. And with the shift, this general shift towards blockchain that we're seeing the rest of the world have, like JP Morgan featuring and using their coin in production for the first time last week, there's major stuff happening right now. This enables massive growth potential for Chainlink. It works with 74 blockchains today. That's a lot. That is more than any other cross-chain communications protocol out there. Well, it makes sense because Chainlink is years ahead of the competition. Working with 74 blockchains means that every piece of data that can be monetized on any one of those blockchains can compound the monetization of Chainlink. That means, sure, Ethereum is going to do amazingly well with Ethereum 2.0 coming out. It's going to make the world billions, probably even trillions with its infrastructure. And that will still only be a portion of Chainlink's massive network. Today, Chainlink secures over half of all the value in DeFi. Today, it's something around 15 billion, 14 point something billion, somewhere around there. Chainlink secures over half of this value. Things like wrapped BTC. You've got True USD that just announced that they're using Chainlink to verify their reserves. You've got Aave, Uniswap. You've got massive, the defining players of DeFi picking the industry standard. There's a reason Sergey said this was an industry standard. The quote where he says, "We make software and we make it so well that I believe that it will become the industry standard." And you know what, Sergey? I believe you too. Now, for you to get why Chainlink matters, for you to understand the value of any of this, we have to go back to the start. You have to understand a few other things before you can. If you already know about the story of Bitcoin and the story of Ethereum and all of these things and all of the back players of Chainlink, then just sit back and relax and take this as a little bit of a run through memory lane. But for all of the uninitiated, let's go back and see how everything came to be as it is. So, once upon a time, back in the 90s, there's a gentleman named Nick Szabo, esteemed computer scientist, very smart man, as are all the people involved in Chainlink. He had this idea of a concept called the smart contract. Basically, the smart contract is a computer program that can define and execute its own terms. So let's say we're having a bet, and the bet is that, I bet that America will win the FIFA 2020 World Cup versus Mexico. The smart contract will take the terms of our agreement, such as the teams involved, the winning conditions, the payout conditions, etc. It'll take our collateral, it'll take our money, cryptocurrency money, US dollars, whatever. Nowadays you can use regular currencies in this kind of smart contract. And it will fetch data from the real world to see who the winners of the World Cup are to determine the results of the bet, and it will execute payout completely on its own. So that means everything from us giving the protocol money and giving it the terms of our bet, everything from there to full payout and finalization happen in an automated way with no third party interfering with it. This prevents fraud. This prevents people from manipulating data sources, from manipulating the outcome or preventing the outcome of the agreement to occur. Keeps people from backing out of agreements. This is a technology that is very seriously necessary in a world where a lot of our business cost comes from not honoring agreements or fraud. But there's a problem. This is the 90s. This technology was limited back then. They weren't able to build smart contracts effectively because of two major issues. One, there was no safe place to store them. If you stored them on a regular traditional database, the database could be hacked, so the next time the smart contract executes, it does something that it wasn't intended to do. Or the data source that triggers the smart contract could be hacked, which means that I could hack the FIFA website or whatever website or data source that the smart contract looks to find the results. I could change them in my favor and win the bet dishonestly. Smart idea, good idea, wrong time. But this character will return in the story. Don't worry. So, next up in the 90s, we have a gentleman called Ari Jules. Ari Jules today is Cornell University's first endowed professor. And he has helped develop many technologies over the years, but in the 90s specifically, he helped make the RSA encryption algorithm, which powers most of the government's encryption necessities today. And he invented the proof of work consensus mechanism, which not many people know. He helped build the piece of Bitcoin that lets miners check against each other to make sure that the data they're verifying is legit. Very important pieces in this puzzle, but let's continue down the line. We're still in the 90s here. We're nowhere close to Bitcoin yet. So around the same time that these inventions all came out, that the philosophy of smart contracts came out, the consensus mechanisms first started being created, there was an invention called Hashcash. Now, Hashcash was supposed to be like the first cryptocurrency, imagine. It is a currency where you spend processing power to get a currency with which you spend to send emails. Now, the point of this was to fight email fraud and spam. So where if it cost limited resources to send an email, then spammers couldn't effectively send unlimited numbers of spam emails. They would have to pay per email and therefore reduce fraud. Great idea, but because of the same problems in smart contracts, we saw problems with Hashcash. There was no safe place to store the Hashcash database, so values could be changed and people could give themselves money. It was the right idea with the wrong prep. Some technologies had yet to be invented. So it did not die in vain. Let me tell you that, though. So Hashcash sucked. Hashcash sucked for the same reason smart contracts sucked. Not because they were bad ideas, but because we needed these little magical keys to unlock them. So let's fast forward a couple decades. 2008. What happens? The financial crash and housing market collapse. To put it really, really shortly, what caused the housing market crash was bankers used to do mortgages at a very low percent without much money being made, right? They would just have the mortgages and they would collect their couple percent and they would make their money and be happy with it. But a couple bankers figured out ways to make more money from mortgages than average. What they invented was the mortgage-backed security. So imagine normal mortgages are like separated out individually, and you have your one property which is worth, $200,000 or whatever. Well, what a mortgage-backed security does is it'll take hundreds or thousands of these mortgages and it'll lump them all together in one bundle. You rate the bundle based on the value of the properties inside. So let's say out of these 1,000 mortgages, they're worth $200 million in total value, right? Well, okay, they could rate that from A, I think it's a triple A rating, to B or to C, something like that. Anyway, depending on how valuable these properties were, you get a better or worse mortgage-backed security price, right? The problem was the data sources reporting the values of these homes. The banks and the financial institutions involved with creating, rating, and selling these mortgage-backed securities, they all lied about the values of the homes. They said the homes were worth way more than they actually were, and they held off on reporting the fact that delinquencies were at an all-time high. The housing market was, way overpriced, overvalued. They held off on reporting any of that until right about on the precipice of the actual collapse. And then everyone else remembers what happens. Housing market collapses, hundreds of thousands of homes are lost, hundreds of thousands of jobs are lost, tens of thousands of lives are lost from reduced access to medical care, reduced cost of living capabilities, having no food, not being able to pay shelter. These were very hard times. And the world, the economies, need something this drastic to be motivated to adopt anything new. This is why, from the ashes of this 2008 collapse, Bitcoin was born. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer, it's a digital cash system, as Satoshi Nakamoto put it. Satoshi Nakamoto being the anonymous inventor of Bitcoin. But as you see in further episodes, there's pretty good evidence on who the actual inventor or inventors may really be. Bitcoin was invented. You're familiar with Bitcoin. Buy and sell, 70,000 Bitcoin pizza, blah, 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 right? Very fun story. But there was a gentleman that thought, Bitcoin's a little boring. Bitcoin doesn't do quite enough for me. That person was Vitalik Buterin. Vitalik was one of the contributors to the early Bitcoin code back in 2014, but he felt that Bitcoin needed to be able to do more to have more value. I agree with him. I feel like just sending and receiving and holding and timed transfers aren't enough. We need more complex transactions possible to allow real world agreements to enter the blockchain. So Vitalik built this system that allows for bonds, and dividends and complex payout systems, very multi-step processes, complex multi-step processes that ended up being as functional as a regular computer, where you can execute full computer code on this decentralized blockchain network. He had a vision, but his vision was slightly limited because he built this supercomputer, right? And he built it without an Ethernet port. Imagine that. He built a supercomputer that didn't connect to the internet. And none of the other supercomputers, Tronix, Hyperledger, blah, 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 none of them had Ethernet ports on their blockchains either. So it's like you have this whole world of computers and none of them can talk to one another. What value does that bring, you know? Well, we kind of saw what value that brought in 2017, didn't we? It brought CryptoKitties and, you know, these coins for banana stands in Venezuela to sell their bananas, and dentist coins, you know what I mean? Like all this crap, this nonsense. It begged for more applicable, more real world answers, more real world capabilities. So that is when. So it's not that it wasn't enough, you know. I don't think it's a question of Bitcoin didn't do enough or it's not valuable or any of that. I think Bitcoin served a very valuable purpose in its 12 years now of service. Bitcoin's function over 12 years was to be a 12-year proof of concept that a blockchain can work. What, in its most basic form, what else is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is proof that for 12 years a blockchain could run and it could support trillions of dollars of transactions, and it could do so without being hacked or turned off once. That's big. That's big. And as a business or entity or a government, I understand that, okay, let's say back in 2012, 2013, Bitcoin's been out for a few years, right? Ethereum's just coming out, or the idea of smart contracts being on the blockchain is just coming out through Vitalik. You know, simple smart contracts are starting to be built on the Bitcoin network. People are starting to catch wind in general. Even then, as a business, I would be like, okay, the capabilities necessary for my business are beginning to come out, but I want to give it a little more time to mature, just to see what happens, just to see if any other country or any other business can hack it or can mess it up. And after 10 years, the proof of concept's all pretty much finished in my eyes, because that is the year that you could really see a shift in legacy finance, in government, in business, to using blockchains for much more than just financial transfers and agreements. So this brings me to, before we jump into Chainlink, because we're going in this chronologically, as you can tell, before we jump into Chainlink, let's jump from Vitalik's 2014-2015 early Bitcoin shift from making smart contracts on Bitcoin to making the Ethereum platform and Ethereum virtual machine. The next year, 2015, we have Sergey, who did the Swift In a Tribe conference, where the smart contract team went with Swift and showed private, permissioned versions of smart contracts, bonds being paid out and stuff like that, showing proof of functionality, showing that this idea of smart contracts works now, but it's not quite ready. It works, but it's not quite finished. Because yes, they were able to make a private, permissioned, closed off smart contract that didn't really rely on real world data, right? But what about when it does? When it needs data from the markets to finalize or to pay out that bond, well, if you have an insecure way to communicate that data, then the bond is worthless. Imagine having $1 trillion bond and it gets hacked for a few pennies along the way through some sort of man-in-the-middle attack or a hack attack. You know what I mean? Imagine having this platform, this very secure communications platform even, but the endpoints in your system are insecure. You know, you code this $1 trillion bond and somebody has a virus laying in wait on your system, and right before it executes, they take the $1 trillion. That couldn't have been a thing. Swift knew that. Sergey knew that. So Swift and Sergey came together after this and decided, well, I think we need to make some sort of secure middleman, secure middleware communication layer between the blockchain and old databases, and between our blockchain and our business partner, our business competitor blockchains even, because we need total connectivity just like the internet for this new system. And we need it safe. We need it to be unhackable from the beginning to the end. From the computer it starts at, to the communication layer in the middle, to the computer it ends at. Or program it begins and ends at, or smart contract it begins and ends at. Then you have evidence of a Google hackathon from a few years ago with Sergey in it too. This is around the same time that Vitalik was becoming very active in the Ethereum scene, or becoming more active in the Bitcoin smart contract scene, I should say, leading to his segue into Ethereum. And then, lo and behold, in a year in 2017, a magical two-man team of Ari Jules and Sergey Nazarov came together and invented something called Chainlink. Really, it was more than a two-man team, but that's just a meme for the fraud posters out there. It took a few minds. Steve Ellis was involved. I insist that Hal Finney was involved, even if only for his early Bitcoin contributions. His vision is carried on through Sergey and his team. We have Adeline Show, who's a marketing employee of Chainlink, but happens to be a very esteemed AI scientist as well. That's the part of her background I like to focus on more. It's more interesting considering Adeline Show's AI background in the context of the potential future of Chainlink. But anyway, this team came together, and Rory Piant, of course, I can't forget Mr. Rory Piant for taking in the Chainlink community with open arms to help us grow, to help grow the presence, the digital presence and the awareness of Chainlink, and for the presentations they all gave. This team came together and created a secure way for blockchains to talk to one another. And it changed the world. Didn't change it overnight, but the seeds have been sown that are starting to sprout of oak trees and redwoods of change. So Chainlink, basically, in a very simple overview, it will, let's go back to that FIFA analogy, right? The smart contract with the bet. So what Chainlink will do in that situation was, remember where the single source of data for the bet is where it got hacked and where it could be not useful, the smart contract? Well, instead of just one system checking one database for the results of the game and coming back to a single system to report them, what we have now through Chainlink is it will send this request for data to a network of computers, or nodes they call them. These nodes all have access to different data sources for the same data. So let's say for FIFA, we can check the FIFA website and then 2 or 3 other reputable sources of data and average them, or kind of aggregate the data together and figure out between them which one is legitimate. So let's say we have 20 nodes or 30 nodes, and we have 3 different websites, and all 10 of each go to each of the 3 data sources. They'll all come together. If at least 27 or 28 of them say that US won the FIFA World Cup, then the results will pay out as if the US won the FIFA World Cup. You can have guarantees that the money paid out correctly because you have vetted data sources from multiple places. The more data sources you put in and the more nodes you have verifying these data sources, the more secure your network becomes. This is why Chainlink is the most secure data oracle network in existence, because it has the largest reach and the most nodes operating in it, and is performing the most jobs correctly a day compared to any other oracle network. Don't we love Sergey and the team? And there's a lot more to it than just that. There's a lot more to it than just transferring data into and out of smart contracts from the real world. You have massive software protocols, things like Deco and Mixicals, things like the verifiable random function, threshold signatures to speed up Chainlink. I'm going to take time for each of these individually. It wouldn't do justice for me to just do a general overview of all these massive pieces. It'll totally undersell the value of each of them. They very seriously need one entire episode each. I'm going to be honest with you. This is a fixed game. Crypto's a fixed game. The markets are a fixed game. When you look at the kind of people involved, these are the kind of entities: the Chinese government, the U.S. federal government, Cornell University, Google, Microsoft, Swift, Santander, the UN. These are the kind of entities that would not bet on a horse that would lose. You know what I mean? They would not all come together and all pour in so much time and money and effort and R&D staff to build with this protocol for years if it wasn't going to amount to something significant. And we're starting to see the trickle of significance come in with the going from $0 of DeFi in June to $15 billion of DeFi today, most of which is secured by Chainlink. We can see the massive exponential levels of growth already happening. And to be honest, a lot of it is catalyzed by COVID-19. A lot of it has been catalyzed in ways like pushing forward blockchain in a sense of digital currencies, not just to aid in the financial turmoils that economies are going through, but to also aid on the forefront of the virus itself, minimizing viral presence through physical cash transfer. Digitizing cash reduces surface area of touch, reduces viral load. You've got digital identity. South Korea, Japan, many other countries have already implemented COVID immunity passports, and many other larger countries like the US are looking into it very, very closely to see as an interim solution for allowing businesses to reopen while still maintaining safety standards regarding the viral contact tracing. There's a lot of parts of this that have been planned out for a long time that are coming to fruition, and it's a little intimidating for some. Things like the digital identity. Seeing ID 2020 pitched as an idea 2 years ago, seeing the Chainlink team very actively involved with it, such as Ari Jules and Andrew Miller and others, Van Chang, being involved in the distributed identity paper shown here. And then you've got Hyperledger working through Hyperledger Avalon using a trusted execution environment similar to Town Crier in Chainlink. They've already admitted to working with Chainlink to build their secure Oracle system. Hyperledger is IBM's blockchain. They are the ones that are building Hyperledger Indy, which is the UN's distributed identity blockchain, again, advised on by other team members. You see the connections both at the infrastructure level and at the advising governance level of these systems. This is a game that is fixed. And if you bet, this is not financial advice, but I'm going to show you reasons why I'm all in on Chainlink, and I think that they're going to, it's going to be a good explanation, and you're going to understand why I would do such a thing. Well, Chainlink wasn't the best performing asset 3 years in a row for no reason. I told you I wouldn't talk about price at the beginning of this, but going up 600% year to date in the middle of a COVID, global economic collapse, that's pretty significant, I would say. That's more than significant. That is life-changing for some. The caliber of the people involved in a project like this ensured success. Ensure it. There's so many people involved that even if Sergey and the whole team drop the ball right now, there are so many massive enterprises standing right behind them, itching to take the mantle of this thing, that it is impossible for it to not come to full fruition. And there was a group of people involved that I didn't mention. One of the most important groups of people involved in this project. And no, it's not Google, Oracle, or Swift, or any of that, or the governments, or none of that. No. It is the 4chan frog posters. It is you who go out there and who shared the early Chainlink memes, who made the early Chainlink memes, and who photoshopped that cube into every frog picture you could find. You are one of the most important groups in this because you helped people outside of the norm get into this. Let me tell you guys a story. You know who the two main groups of investors were in the Chainlink ICO? The first group, they were all the venture capital, hedge fund, investment firm, legacy finance types, right? And you know who this other group of investors in the 4chan or in the Chainlink ICO were? They were random posters on 4chan's business board. Yep, they came together, and they were one of the few people that ended up buying out Chainlink and ending the ICO sale within hours. Because this is a group of people who knew and who saw the value earlier than anyone else, and I commend them for that. They saw that value earlier than Google, apparently because Google didn't get it until 2018, earlier than Oracle, earlier than Microsoft. These people saw something, they saw something in the distant future that hardly anybody else could see, and they jumped on it, and that's why this group, these frog posters, are some of the largest holders and whales in Chainlink. These are people, some of them have probably already made millions off of this. More than guaranteed, some of them have made millions off of this. And they will only continue to hold. They have this tenacity and this zeal that is unmatched by any other community in the crypto sphere, on YouTube or Twitter or anywhere else, on any other site, Reddit, especially Reddit. Don't get me started on Reddit. I commend you. I commend you. As one of your ranking frog posters, I wouldn't have preferred it any other way. You know, the frog posters on 4chan attracted a lot of interesting information too. There was a lot of interesting information leaked over the years about Chainlink in general. Breadcrumbs about potential partnerships, quotes from individuals. You have the whole Blith Masters digital asset timeline. You have the whole Tom Gosner Salesforce timeline. Oh, don't worry. Oh, we're going into each of these individually. I'm not going to gloss over them like the other YouTubers. I'm going to steer clear of the modern news unless it's something significant like staking, of course. But I really want to catch you guys up on the real in-depth, how did these people know? How is it that this random ragtag group of nobodies from a Malaysian basket weaving forum knew that this was going to be such an integral part of the fourth industrial revolution? Well, you're here to find out. We will uncover, our job, Behind the Cube's job, is to uncover all of this information for the public to see. The fourth industrial revolution is imminent, and it is time that the public was made aware of how this group of people prepared, why they did it, what mindset they had, what culture they came from, and what is next. What is next for us? Things like digital identity, central bank digital currencies. You have social credit systems. You've got immunity passports. 60% of the global workforce automated. You've got the Great Reset, the Great Financial Collapse and Reset, a global economic failure and restructuring, and it will be powered by Chainlink. Why am I doing this? Why not just come on here and tell you that I'm very interested in Tronics or XLM? Why not come out here and say, hey, I just bought the newest yield farming DeFi coin, and here's what I think about it. Those people will pay me $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 to shill their shitcoin, to get people to buy it, to give half-assed research information, or to be asked questions and to Google things as I'm live streaming about coins that I know nothing about, giving questions to these people who cling on to the words that I say because people have built such great followings that they're treated as prophets. I'm not here for that. I'm here because nobody talks about the whole story behind Chainlink. It's always sectioned off. It's always either they'll talk about the tech side of things, or they'll talk about the chart analysis, or they'll talk about the history, or they'll talk about the esoteric side of it. You never get a full picture. All this information has been scattered through the internet over the years, and it is our job now to piece it all together and to present it to you. I don't think that went too bad. I think that went pretty well. I'm really glad you could join me for this. You know, this is a lot of fun. I could see this becoming a regular thing. We need to start having this mindset for every part of crypto, for every part of business and politics and so forth. We need to have a clear, concise picture with cited sources from beginning to end so we can understand what's happening and what's to come. Chainlink is massive. This is going to be a project that is already changing the world. Having a little bit of extra background knowledge on it will arm you to be ready for the changes to come, not just to roll with the punches, but to really ride this tide, to profit from it. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I know every YouTuber is going to tell you that, but I really appreciate you guys watching. You know, I'm really excited to show you guys the next set of videos. We're going to be doing questions and answers, comment questions below. We're going to be doing in-the-street interviews, interviewing people in the industry. We're going to be participating in wider spread events. These are fun times. You know, just because it's COVID, just because it's a financial collapse, doesn't mean that something greater can't come of it. And let's find that something greater together. Thanks.